Hello, ladies and gentlemen. For today, we're going to talk about another big hit piece here, where Florida lawmakers and the Texas is looking to ban the criminalizing drag shows for children, and I would actively agree with this. Let's get right this into the article. All right. So first off, we'll start off with this: conservative Texas lawmaker muddles bill that would ban family-friendly drag shows. Oak Lawn Gay Bar. Is that really what it's called? What? All right. Well, Mr. invited parents and their kids to attend a family-friendly drag show on Saturday, drawing angry protesters and sparking outrage on social media. Now, a Texas Republican lawmaker wants to close the doors on all ages drag events. On Monday, Royce City State Rep Brian Slayton tweeted that he will file a bill in next session to ban drag shows from being held in the presence of minors. The events of this past weekend were horrifying and show a disturbing trend in which perverted adults are obsessed with sexualizing young children, Slayton said in the statement. As a father of two young children, I would never take my children to a drag show, and I know the rest of my Republican colleagues wouldn't either, he continued. Protecting our children isn't enough, and our responsibility as lawmakers extends to the sexualization that is happening across Texas. He goes on to say here, since this press release was put on this morning, I received support from Republican lawmakers in both the Texas legislature and in Congress. I am glad this important issue is receiving the attention it deserves, the attention Texas kids deserve. We will win. So he puts on to this here. We'll go directly to here so you guys get to see the full article. So it will go on to say that following several news stories and videos over the weekend in which underage Texas children were subjected to inappropriate sexual content by adults, State Representative Brian Slayton announced that he plans to file legislation protecting kids from drag shows and other inappropriate displays as soon as the next legislative session begins. Representative Slayton issued the following statement. The events of this past weekend were horrifying and show a disturbing... what he said in this article. As a father of two young children, I would never take my children to the drag show, and this is exactly what he says from the following statements. Representative Slayton has already announced that he will continue his fight to make sex change therapies on minors or child abuse. Similar legislation was killed by Republicans in the Texas House in 2021. Representative Slayton's effort, I promised my voters that I would stand up for their values and fight to protect Texas kids. I was reelected on that promise, and I intend to keep it by authoring legislation to defend kids from being subjected to drag shows and other inappropriate events. I look forward to working with my colleagues to pass this important legislation. Yep. I would agree with this. LGBTQ advocates have been sounding the alarm in Texas, and beyond that, their right to exist is under attack. But conservatives nationwide are applauding Slayton and have already considered copying the move. I agree, and we'll go into that second. But let me address some of my opinions here. All right. So this is a good example onto why they say when they say LGBTQ plus advocates have been sounding the alarm in Texas. Beyond that, their right to exist is under attack. Now, here's the big crucial thing here, is that it's under attack. They are not under attack. You're just being prevented from having them being exploited to children. It's not allowed to be to children. What you are doing is actually grooming children. That is what you're doing. So that means that your whole single side of LGBTQ plus is actually pedophiles. Let me put that in another word. Groomers. Sexual deviants. Kid diddlers. Get the picture here? So, again, anybody that is in support of this, I would say is low-key a pedophile, because why would you want your kids being any remotely around these type of people that are dressed in a sexual manner? Period. It's disgusting. And, of course, there's people that will go out and defend this. And they're not all right in the head. I may believe Tim Pool did like a show with this one guy. I forgot his name. It's like Matt something. And this guy just kept on running around in circles, not knowing what he was saying, being an absolute moron. I mean, he couldn't even understand the words that Tim was trying to tell him at all, period. it's dumbfounding these people. It makes me believe that these people, these far left individuals, these sickos, have very low IQ, because if they had any remotely type of decent IQ at all, they would be able to at least understand our point of view. But they don't. They don't understand our point of view. But whenever they say something that, that's their point of view or whatever, majority of us actually understand it, unless it's just, when it comes to kids. So, I mean, at that point, we start to, not try to understand, we just want to try to, make sure it never happens. And Florida follows suit, my friends. Florida will follow suit. Florida lawmaker to introduce bill criminalizing drag sex shows for children. And now, remember what it's actively saying here, guys. Remember what it's actively saying here. Alright? So, when we say they're criminalizing drag shows, sex shows, they're saying it for children. For children. It's not for adults, it's for children. That's the very big key word there. Children. You should be okay with that, right? Because they're sex shows, right? And don't people get in trouble for, sexualizing children? Yeah, I think they do. Unless, you want to allow pedophilia. But then, by all means, you'll be being met by the hands of a gun by a normal parent. So, I mean, either you want your entire movement to be killed by normal rationing parents because they do not want you sexualizing their kids or going even near them, or you just have this ban where you guys don't have your lives essentially threatened because you're being prevented from going after their children, so they don't have the fun they need to have to protect their children from you. Now, let's all take a step back and clarify what my words essentially mean. Now, I am not saying that parents will actively go out and shoot people, or they will actively go out and harm LGBTQ people or whatever. However, if you start going after their kids, if you start trying to, do anything that is in sexual matter to the kids, yes, they are going to feel very uncomfortable. And yes, some may go to the extremes. But if you were an actual legitimate parent, you would probably know this, right? Why you would want to protect your children from harm. Republican State Rep. Anthony Sabatini plans to introduce legislation criminalizing the act of bringing children to sex shows and drag shows, he announced Monday. The bill, if passed, would make it a felony for an adult to bring a child to a sexually themed drag show and allow authorities to terminate parental rights over violations, Sabatini told the Daily Caller News Foundation. The announcements came in response to a Palm Beach event titled Pride on the Block Drag Show for Kids. We need this legislation to protect children, Sabatini told the DSNAF. Too many sick, woke adults are forcing young children into these drag shows and trying to sexualize them at an earlier and earlier ages. This bill would prevent that. Breaking. Drag sex shows aimed at children have come to Florida. I will be proposing a legislation to charge with felony and terminate the parental rights of any adult who brings a child to these perverted sex shows aimed at Florida kids. When will the sexualization of children stop? Exactly. When will it stop? The June 5th drag show for kids event was sponsored by Rory's Rhetoric, a social justice-oriented children's bookstore and reading center, according to the event website. The event was open to all ages and was meant to foster social justice abilities and to raise funds for LGBTQ people struggling with drug addiction and alcoholism. The bill will make it a felony under Florida law for an adult to bring a child into a drag sex show, he said. It would also create a new provision under Florida law where the Florida Department of Children and Families can move forward with terminating parental rights of an adult that brought a child into a drag sex show and extend Florida's lewd and less legislative materials, pornographic law to include these sex shows aimed at children. Rose's Rhetoric and Pride on the Block did not respond to the Daily News Foundation's request for comment because they know they're in an incredible amount of trouble. Now, guys, again, notice how when the left started failing at everything else, their biggest thing was to go after the children. Notice this only happened fairly recently, since the last year and there. Now, no, this year and now this year and last year. Now, granted, this has been going on in schools for a lot longer than we anticipated, or that a lot of people knew, right? We all knew for the most part that this was going on, but I digress. But now, since COVID started, we get to see what's inside going into our classrooms and what's going on outside of this. And now people are angry. And telling you right now, you go after people's kids, you're not going to be met with non-lethal force. You will be met with immediate lethal force if you try to go after their kids in any sort of way. It's very, very sick. Sick, I tell you. So, and another thing as well is that here's one thing that I would like to do that would probably, explain a lot of things to get what it does to children. Okay. So, what we have here is very easy to see, right? So, we'll click onto this, and it says child sex abuse accelerates puberty. Young girls who are sexually abused may undergo puberty earlier than their peers, according to a study published in April issue of the journal Adolescent Health. The study involved a group of girls who had been sexually abused in a comparison with a group of girls who had not experienced sexual abuse. Researchers focused on the age at which the study participants enter puberty, determining the study by the development of breast and pubic hair to assess the psychological toll of childish sexual abuse. The study found that girls who had been sexually abused developed breasts 8 months earlier, and pubic hair 12 months earlier than their peers. Though a year's difference may seem trivial in the grand scheme of a life, this accelerated maturation has been linked to concerning consequences, including behavioral and mental problems and reproductive cancers, said Jenny Knoll, PhD, director of the Child Maltreatment Solutions Network, and professor of human development and family studies at the Penn State Social Science Research Institute in a news release. Extended exposure to sex hormones may lead to reproductive cancers and complications with menstruation and fertility, as well as issues related to psychosocial development to the study. Adolescents who begin puberty early than their peers tend to associate with older, more risk-taking peers and face inappropriate expectations that they are not prepared to navigate, the study said. While sexual abuse has negative effects for victims no matter their age, experiencing sexual abuse during childhood may be particularly damaging. I say it's damaging across the board, but I digress. The immense stress of sexual assault likely plays a strong role in the onset of puberty, and experiencing such high stress during a pivotal period of growth may have long-lasting effects, according to the study. Our findings point to the possibility that there is something unique about the experience of sexual abuse that influences pubertal maturation, the study said. However, it remains to be determined whether sexual abuse, as opposed to other forms of abuse or maltreatment experienced during childhood, leads to worse outcomes. The findings can be used to bolster awareness of the health risks that adolescents who enter puberty early may face. According to the study, with increased awareness, practitioners can encourage youth who have entered puberty early to seek out early cancer screenings and other behavioral interventions. Pointing young survivors of sexual abuse to trauma-focused behavioral therapy can also help them overcome problems in psychosocial development. Well, there you have it. You have this here that says it does accelerate, and all this other stuff. Now, granted, this is child abuse. Okay, so what if we put in here? And then we try to find out child's identification with people around imitation in every possible way. They will try to imitate things. You might have asserted that your child is a little person who does everything that you do. But being an infant in his own world, he eventually starts noticing his body as well as objects in his environment. He's observing He is observing keenly that what people say or do, and so their body language. You're walking and talking around him, so can he. You are watching a TV or working in a tab, even he would. You talk about certain topics, and eventually find him also something to say. Your emotions do not take time to much time to be reflected on his face. It's all an indication that your child absorbs everything about his environment and imitates you as a first step in making sense of his environment. He's closely reading your emotions. You are his role model in creating his life. All these doesn't mean that he understands what he is doing. An exposure to a sexual activity in his initial years will make him also want to express his things in a similar way as an avid imitator. He also realizes that it's not accepted whenever he shows this sort of behavior. It gets to him as something which he is anxious about and cannot control on one hand and feels guilty about on another. So, if we take this, ladies and gentlemen, and then add it to sex drag shows for this specific thing, what do you think that's going to do to children exactly? Yeah, fight against that, leftists. Yeah, let's fight against that. Alright guys, that's it for the video. Like, subscribe, share, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Keep your kids away from these damn pedophiles, would ya?